Are you going to the gym, eating well, doing everything the way you're supposed to, and still not seeing results? Maybe the problem isn't what you're missing, but what you're doing wrong without realizing it. There are silent mistakes that not only slow your progress, but are sabotaging your body and your results from the inside. Stay with me, because point number 2 is going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about training. Mistake 7. Training the exact same way all the time. If you've spent months, or worse, years, doing the exact same routine with the same exercises, in the same order, with the same weight and the same number of reps, then yes, you're committing one of the most destructive training mistakes: silent adaptation. The dangerous part about this mistake is that it disguises itself as discipline. You go to the gym, you follow your routine, you work hard. But in reality, your body already adapted. It's no longer stressed. And if there's no stress, there's no adaptation, no progress. It's scientifically proven. A study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research showed that people who changed their routine every 4 to 6 weeks gained up to 28% more muscle than those who kept the same routine for long periods. Why? Because they forced their bodies to adapt to new stimuli. The human body is a machine of efficiency. If you repeat the same movements over and over, your neuromuscular system learns to perform them with less effort. It does them better, yes, but with less muscle activation. And that means you're training, but not progressing. Most people think training hard is enough, but it's not just about sweating or feeling the muscle. It's about constantly challenging the body with something it doesn't expect. If today you're doing flat bench press, maybe next week it's time to incline the bench. If you're using the same weight you used a month ago, your body doesn't see it as a challenge anymore. When was the last time you truly changed your routine? When was the last time you did something that actually pulled your body out of its comfort zone? Training the same way isn't consistency. It's comfort disguised as discipline. And that's the first step toward stagnation. The key isn't training more, it's training better. And that starts by stopping the cycle of doing the same thing over and over again. Mistake 6. Obsessing over hitting failure every single set. One of the most common and most dangerous mistakes is believing that if you don't take every set to absolute failure, you're not training properly. The classic, if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't work mentality. And while failure can be a powerful tool when used correctly, the truth is that most people are using it wrong. Listen closely. Taking every set to failure in every exercise, during every workout, doesn't make you more disciplined. It makes you more prone to burnout, overtraining, and eventually injury. Your nervous system is not infinite, and your recovery capacity isn't either. A meta-analysis by Helms and colleagues in 2018 found that taking every set to failure does not produce greater muscle growth compared to stopping a few reps short. What did increase, however, was accumulated fatigue and a breakdown in technique. In other words, higher risk, same results, or worse. Here's what nobody tells you. When you train to failure all the time, you're not just exhausting the muscle, you're exhausting your nervous system. You go into the next set more fatigued, with worse form, and with less ability to create a quality stimulus. You train a lot, but progress little. Now think, how many times a week are you hitting failure without even realizing it? And how many times are you doing it without knowing whether you're actually working the muscle or just feeding your ego? Failure should be strategic, not constant. It can be useful in the final set of an exercise or in isolation movements where the risk of injury is low. But taking heavy squats to failure, that's not bravery. That's ignorance. Progress doesn't come from punishment. It comes from smart stimulation. If every set becomes an uncontrolled war, the only thing you'll gain is fatigue. And fatigue doesn't build muscle, recovery does. So next time you train, ask yourself, are you training to improve or just to exhaust yourself? Mistake 5. Eating like you're bulking when you don't need to. Many people believe that to build muscle, you have to eat like you're prepping for a bodybuilding stage. They stuff themselves with rice, chicken, oats, creatine, shakes, and more shakes. They obsess over the caloric surplus as if it were a universal law. Eat more than you burn and you'll grow. But what nobody tells you is that when that approach is used incorrectly, you end up gaining more fat than muscle. The mistake isn't wanting to bulk. The mistake is doing it without strategy. Because having a small, controlled surplus is one thing, and eating like your body has the ability to build a kilo of muscle per week is another. It doesn't. Muscle builds slowly, very slowly. On average, a beginner with solid training and nutrition can gain between 0.5 and 1 kilo of muscle per month. And that's being consistent, sleeping well, and training properly. So if you're gaining 3 or 4 kilos per month, here's the hard truth. That's not muscle, it's fat. A study published by Morton et al. In 2018 showed that consuming more than 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight provides no additional benefits in protein synthesis. Meaning, after a certain point, more is not better. You're just overloading your digestive system, adding empty calories, and fooling yourself into thinking you'll grow faster. The uncontrolled bulk, the one where you eat out of anxiety rather than strategy, leads to only one destination: needing an aggressive cut later. And when that happens, you'll lose part of the muscle you worked so hard to build. A never-ending cycle. You don't need to eat like a competitor. You need to eat like someone who trains intelligently. Train hard. Eat with precision. And don't use food as an excuse to feel like you're progressing, because gaining weight and building muscle are not the same thing. And if you don't learn to separate them, you'll spend years feeling bigger, but not better. Mistake 4. Believing that sweating more means progressing more. This is one of the most common mistakes, especially among people who train seeking to feel the effort. The idea that if you finish drenched in sweat, heart rate through the roof, and your muscles on fire, then it must have been a good workout. But let me tell you something uncomfortable. Sweating means nothing. Sweating more doesn't mean you burned more fat, stimulated more muscle, or got closer to your goals. All it means is that your body is regulating temperature. That's it. The problem is that many people train looking for that sensation: extreme exhaustion, buckets of sweat, the feeling of dying. But progress isn't measured in sweat. It's measured in results, in strength, performance, body composition, control. The American College of Sports Medicine has made it clear. Sweat is a physiological response to body temperature, not an accurate measure of effort or training effectiveness. You could be in a cold room, do a high-quality strength session, and barely sweat. Does that mean it didn't work? Absolutely not. The dangerous part of this mentality is that it pushes people into overtraining, doing unnecessary cardio after every session, or stuffing their workouts with supersets, circuits, and pointless active rest, just to feel drained. But the body doesn't grow from punishment. It grows from controlled, progressive stress, not from mindless destruction. See the problem? You're training to feel like you did something, instead of training to create a real stimulus. And that's the difference between training with purpose and just moving around to get tired. So next time you finish a session without being drenched, don't feel guilty. Ask yourself if you trained with intention, with technique, with progressive overload. Because that's where the magic happens, not in how many towels you need afterward. Mistake 3. Thinking that more volume is better, while neglecting technique. I see this mistake every single day. People walk into the gym with one mindset: the more sets I do, the more I'll grow. They obsess over volume, 5, 6, even 8 exercises per muscle group, but they never stop to think about how they're doing them. And that's the real problem. When you prioritize volume over technique, what you're building isn't a better physique. It's a ticking time bomb. Training with poor form isn't just inefficient, it's dangerous. Your joints can't handle the abuse. Your tendons can't either. And the worst part? You're not even stimulating the muscle effectively. You're moving weight. You're making noise, but you're not progressing. A study by Schoenfeld, one of the world's leading experts in hypertrophy, showed that muscle activation is far greater when a movement is performed with proper technique, even with less weight, than when training heavy with bad form. What does that mean? That lifting more kilos doesn't mean building more muscle. If there's no mind-muscle connection, no control, no well-directed tension, there are no results. But here's where ego takes over. Ego wants to lift more. Ego wants to impress. Ego wants everyone to see how much weight you're pushing, even if you're destroying yourself in the process. And the sad part? Most people don't realize the damage until it's too late. Chronic injuries, joint wear, muscle tears, all from training like machines instead of human beings. Technique is everything. If you can't control the weight, that weight doesn't belong to you. And if your form breaks halfway through the movement, the only thing you're building is an appointment with the physiotherapist. More volume doesn't mean more progress. It means more stress. And if that stress isn't properly targeted, it'll break you before it ever builds you. So next time you're tempted to throw in 20 sets for back or load more weight than you can truly handle, remember this: you're not there to move iron. You're there to transform your body. And that starts with one well-executed rep. Mistake 2. Sleeping poorly while believing protein will fix everything. A lot of people obsess over diet, the perfect workout, the post-workout shake, the fancy supplements, but they sleep 5 hours and think they're doing everything right. Let me make this crystal clear. If you're not sleeping well, everything else means little to nothing. Muscle doesn't grow when you train. It grows when you rest. More specifically, when you sleep deeply. During sleep, especially in the deep stages, your body releases the hormones that stimulate muscle repair, such as growth hormone and testosterone. If you don't sleep, you simply don't produce them in the amounts you need. Period. Want real data? A study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association showed that sleeping fewer than 5 hours per night for just 1 week reduces testosterone levels by 10 to 15% in healthy young men. That doesn't just affect your recovery, it weakens you, frustrates you, and sabotages your progress from the inside out. But here's the worst part. Many people believe they can compensate with more protein. They think that if they take their shake, their nighttime casein, their creatine, and their magic pills, the body will take care of it, even if they slept like trash. Wrong. Completely wrong. Without sleep, there is no effective protein synthesis. What you eat doesn't turn into muscle. It turns into wasted calories. And in many cases, fat. And no, 6 little hours isn't enough. Scientific literature is clear. You need 7 to 9 hours of real high-quality sleep to function hormonally, cognitively, and physically. And if you're training hard, you should aim for the higher end of that range. So the question isn't, are you training enough? The real question is, are you sleeping enough for that training to actually matter? Because if you don't sleep well, you're not building muscle. You're building frustration, accumulated fatigue, and eventually injuries. Want real results? Turn off your phone, close TikTok, and start respecting sleep as part of your training. Because it is. Mistake 1. Comparing yourself to others and training like them. This mistake is perhaps the most common of all, and the most destructive. You go to the gym, you see that guy with massive arms, a wide back, veins popping everywhere. And instead of following your plan, you change everything. You copy his routine. You imitate his movements. You take the same supplements. You start training as if you had his body, his experience, his context. But what you don't see is what's behind it. You don't know if that person has been training for 10 years. You don't know if he sleeps like a professional or if he's on with something extra behind the scenes. You don't know if the routine he does is the best or just the one he likes the most. And without realizing it, you stop building your body and start trying to replicate someone else's. That's the biggest trap in fitness: constant comparison. Because while you're jumping from routine to routine, chasing fast results, copying whatever the biggest guy in the gym is doing, you lose focus, you lose criteria, and you lose precious time. Everybody responds differently. Every genetics has its limits, its strengths, its timing. And until you understand that, you'll keep spinning in circles, believing you're making progress, when in reality, you're just imitating. Science backs it up. According to the guidelines of the National Strength and Conditioning Association, training must be individualized, adapted to your level, your recovery capacity, your injury history, your goals. Everything else is noise, and the loudest noise is ego. Training like someone else doesn't make you that person. It pulls you away from who you could become. Don't compete with the guy next to you. Compete with the version of you from yesterday. And remember this: the person who transforms the most is the one who knows themselves best. So stop copying. Start building. Because if you train with someone else's plan, you will never discover the real potential of your own. If all of this made you question the way you've been training, good. Because that's the first step to stop wasting time and start truly building. But if you really want to take your results to the next level, there's something else almost no one is using, and it can make the difference. In the next video, I'm going to reveal the most powerful supplement out there, and almost nobody knows about it. And no, it's not protein. See you there.